Welcome to Book Tease. I'm your host, Jamie, the sassy Southern mama that likes her fiction filthy. Join me each week as we celebrate the power of well-written smut. Let's get spicy. Welcome to Book Tease. I'm your host, Jamie, and we are in our Lust of the Irish month. This book that we're talking about this week is not at all what I was expecting it to be. At all. We are talking about The Devil of Dublin by B.B. Easton. It is book one in the Devil of Dublin series. There's only 2 books in it so far. Okay, before we get started, I have to issue some subject matter warnings because mental health is a high priority, and I want you to listen with care because there are some triggers. This book was way darker than what I anticipated. I was thinking of we were going into a dark romance for sure, with mafia romance is what I was thinking it was, or kind of what it was billed to me as. But this book will shatter your entire heart. It'll put it back together at the end. But I was emotionally devastated by the end of this book. I do want to be sensitive because there are instances of violence, sexual abuse, sexual assault, and child abuse. So I know for me, those are very sensitive subject matters. So I want you to all exercise care and caution moving forward. And as always, this podcast does contain spoilers. So if you haven't read the book already, you might want to pause and come back. But let's go. The timeline is very important in this book. So we're starting with, in chapter 1, Darby, our main female character, is only 8 years old. So that's interesting. But yeah, she's only 8 and she's visiting her grandfather. She's visiting her grandfather in Ireland. And she's never been to Ireland, but this is where her family's from. Her mother grew up in Ireland and left to go to the Americas for whatever reason. I don't know. I would definitely want to stay in Ireland, I think. But, she had her reasons. She didn't, her family, they raised sheep, and maybe she just wanted something different. She didn't want to raise sheep. So she took off to America and met this rocker dude in a one-hit wonder band. And he's apparently a piece of shit. And they had Darby. So she's a single mother. And her father, Darby's father, doesn't even have visitation. He very rarely even has visitation. So that just kind of sets us up there. So Darby's grandmother has just passed away. And that's why they're visiting Ireland, because they're there for the funeral. And she doesn't know what to do in Ireland. She's only 8 years old. And so her grandfather tells her, and plus we have to point out, here's a funeral. Her mother's mother just passed. She's meeting her grandfather. His wife just passed. The adults are having heavier conversations. And so her grandfather's like, hey, why don't you go play in the woods? Because there's woods right by their house. And the kids apparently all love to go play in these woods. And even her mother grew up playing in these woods. And he tells her there's fairies in these woods. That's just kind of the lore you tell children. There's fairy, the good folks love treats. So here, take some cookies with you, or biscuits, as they say. And, go out and about and go have fun. But be careful, don't go on the other side of the loch. Or the lake. You stay on this side of it. If you go on the other side, a witch lives there and she likes to eat children. Now, is this true? Who's to say? It could just be something that the adults tell the kids so that they're not going too far. But, strike a little fear. Sure. That's what most fairy tales are about. So she goes off and she's searching for fairies. And she thinks she found one. She thinks that she found one. She goes into the woods and finds this ruin of a cottage. It's in shambles. It doesn't have a roof anymore. But she hears crying and she sees this beautiful little boy. And he's got a split lip and he's crying, and he's got beautiful silver blue eyes, and like a riot of curly hair, and he's just apparently strikingly cute. And he doesn't speak. So she thinks, oh man, I think I found a real fairy. And so she gives him the cookies and he gobbles them up. Here's the thing. This scene is told from the perspective of a very sweet and innocent 8-year-old little girl. But an adult reading this book, it will shatter your heart, because when you're reading this scene, you know something horrible's happened to this little boy. He's got ill-fitting clothes on. He's got a busted lip. He can't speak. And she finds out just by rambling to him and saying like, hey, how old are you? Are you this old? Are you this old? You know, like she's just so sweet and innocent and just rambling and just talking about stuff, thinking she might have found a fairy. And she finds out he's 10. So he's 2 years older than her, and he can't speak. And it's heartbreaking reading that as an adult, because you're like, okay, I know something very seriously wrong has happened to this little boy. We don't find out yet. Instead, that chapter ends, and chapter 2 is a year in the future. So now Darby is 9, and her mom felt so bad about being so long in between visits to Ireland that she's decided she's going to try to come back every year. So they come back and they're visiting grandfather again. And this time it's just for a fun visit. And she immediately puts on her wellies and runs out to see if she can find the fairy boy again and go to the little ruin of a castle or ruin of a cottage. And she runs up there, and he's there. He's there, and he still can't speak. So he is now 11. He's now 11 years old, and he still has trouble speaking. So she brings him more cookies and finds out he's super thirsty. And she's like, oh, well, there's water and stuff at my grandfather's house. Why don't you just come with me? Because she's a sweet, innocent little girl. But when she's trying to bring him to her grandfather's house, her grandfather sees them and is like, oh, hell no, and chases the boy away. And he tells her, Darby, that little boy is no fairy. He is the opposite. He is the product of Satan himself. His name is Kellen, and his mother brought him to live with Father Henry, the town priest, a few years prior. And he's doesn't speak. He gets in fights. His mother told Father Henry, or Father Henry then told the whole town that he's the product of a relationship she had with the devil himself. So this poor little boy is like the black sheep of the whole town. He is shunned throughout the town. The other little kids pick on him in school. He doesn't do well. He can't, he has trouble speaking. He has anger issues. So yeah, her grandfather's like, don't hang out with him. And she's like, that is not at all the impression I've gotten this little boy. And it makes her actually feel kind of bad for him. Her grandfather tells her that he is pure evil and his soul could not be saved. That is what Father Henry said. And to that I say, wow, it's a really fucking harsh words for an 11-year-old little boy. I mean, my God, what is up with this town? Chapter 3 is another year later. So at this point, Darby is now 10 and Kellen is now 12. And this chapter is told from Kellen's point of view. So now we're leaving the innocent, sweet girl's point of view, and now we are actually finding out a little more about poor Kellen. He is at the cottage because he heard Darby's back in town, and he's hoping that she comes to visit him because she is literally, take a second, this will break your heart. Warning, she is literally the only person in the world that has been kind to him, save his mother that brought him to Father Henry when he was 5. And the only memory he can really have of his mother is her trying to bathe him and dropping wine into the bathwater, or her like being so poor and not having anything that she tried to make him a birthday cake. He doesn't even know when his birthday is. Anyway, it shatters my heart as the mama of a 5-year-old little girl, just like how innocent and sweet that age is. And okay, I can't think too much of it. It will break your heart to think about, especially from the point of view of a mom. He doesn't know when his birthday is. Everyone's mean to him. I'm going to cry. Oh, this is heart shattering. This book had me in ruins. Well, he is at the cottage hoping Darby comes to visit, and he's trying to make furniture because he's got it in his little 12-year-old brain. I'm going to make furniture. I'm going to try to run away and live here. When Darby arrives, he actually manages to say hi. And this is when we find out that he doesn't have a physical inability to speak. He has a psychological block with speaking. He said he describes it as feeling like his throat is closing up. Like he's got barbed wire around his words. Like he cannot just physically get the words out because he has such a mental block of being attacked, having some sort of retribution anytime he opens his mouth. So that's why he doesn't speak. Darby continues being Darby. She's so impressed at the furniture he made, and she's just reveling, just so cute and innocent, and just like, and you get in his perspective how much he just is in awe of that about her. Everyone treats him like he's literally the devil or the product of devil. And she is here looking and acting like a literal angel to him. He is like, she is so pure and beautiful. And she's got this riotous curly red hair and these freckles. And he's like, she is just a light. And that is a theme throughout the book. Darby is the light to his darkness. Throughout the entire book, that is how it's presented to us. She is the light to his darkness. Well, she wants to play barber, and he's like, I'll let her do whatever. And so she braids his hair, and she's brushing it very gently and braiding it, and the tenderness is just getting to him, and he doesn't want to cry in front of her. And so he eventually just runs off, and she's French braided his hair, and he takes off and doesn't say anything. Well, when he gets home, we get a glimpse into how horrible his life is. And again, proceed with caution. It's pretty bad. Father Henry is a straight up monster. And he sees that Kellen has got his hair braided, and he starts going off about homosexuality and how, you're not supposed to act like a woman. And I'm like, if you're a man, I mean, it is just insane. He's rattling off random scripture, and he ends up beating this poor boy very, very harshly. And when Kellen wakes up, his head has been totally shaved, and there's blood everywhere, blood on his clothes, and is like he shaved all his beautiful curly hair off. And so now he's just hardly got any hair, and there's like scabby patches, and it was a really, really tough scene to read. He gets to see Darby more than once this visit. He doesn't want to go back and see her. He doesn't want her to see him in his state. He's been beaten. He's got blood on his clothes, and we get the impression he doesn't have many clothes. But because this is a very Catholic Irish town, they end up going to church the next day. And Darby doesn't want to go to church. She's never had to go to church. Her mother's like, oh, we don't want to have to say the Our Fathers in front of everyone. Everyone's scared of this priest because apparently he's just kind of a hard ass. So if you're late to church, he makes you stand up in front of everybody and read, or not read. You have to recite the Our Father. And her mother's like, no, we're not doing that because you don't even know it. And I'm going to get shamed in this town, so we're not doing it. And they they go off. So Darby ends up, since she's being late, her mom's like, just stay out here. Just stay out here. Don't run off. And we'll be out of church in a minute if you don't want to go anyway. Darby's like, yes, thank you. That sounds great. Well, while she's out there, she catches a glimpse of Kellen in the little shack that's behind the church, because that's where Father Henry lives. And so she runs in there to find him, because she's just a sweet girl and that's her friend, and she feels bad. She's like, I did something to make him run off the night before, so I'm powering in there and I'm going to apologize or whatever. And she sees that his hair is all shaved off, and she thinks it's her fault. Like, she braided it wrong. She braided it too tight. She made a knot out of it, and he had to shave it. And she is just like devastated. And she's like, I'm so sorry. Like, she's blaming herself. And she ends up running off, and he chases her, and he manages to speak and says, remember me, please come back. Like, it was so hard for him to say it, but that's what he says. Remember me, please come back. Chapter 5 comes 2 years later. She's not able to come back 1 year. It's now 2 years later. Just for those keeping track, Darby is now 12. And Kellen is now 14. So they're older now. They're in that preteen, teenager phase, She goes to the ruin. He's there. To the cottage ruin. He's there. And she explains to him, we didn't have enough money. Like, I didn't forget about you. We didn't have enough money to go back last year. But we're here. We're here this year. And they go, he wants to show her, like, again, he's barely speaking, or not speaking at all. He's barely speaking. And he goes to show her the lake, and he wants to show her this rope he's put up there where he can swing and jump into the lake. She's kind of scared. She's kind of scared to do it. But she wants to be brave, because preteen era, you want to be cool, especially for the boy you have a crush on. And she has a crush on him because he has abs now and he's filled out a bit, and, he's 14. So she's like, okay, I gotta be cool. But I have to say this. They strip down to their underwear to swim in the lake, and she has a very insightful thought about her growing body, about her 12-year-old body, because she's developing. She's got boobs now. Anyway, this is what she says. In my old body, I was just Darby. In my new body, I was just a body. As a woman, I felt that to my very, very core. Once you hit a certain point and you've developed and now you're getting curves, there are a whole slew of men that look at you as only a body. They don't even have to know you. That's all you are. And it's a little scary. It's a little intimidating. And yeah, I navigating that can be very hard. So I feel that. I felt that from her. Well, she goes to swing off the rope and dive into the water, and she slips off the rope and lands in the very thorny blackberry bushes that are on the edge of the lake. Well, Kellen freaks out because he's like, oh shit. He's like, she's dead. He's not sure. It was a hard fall into a thorn patch. So he goes and he pulls her out, and he scrapes his hands and arms up as he's pulling her out, and she's all scraped up, and he is like about to have a panic attack. And so he's freaking out a bit, and he while holding her, cradling her, he wades into the really cold lock, because he's like, I need to calm down. Like, I am getting worked up, and if I black out, I'm no good to her. And so he's got her, and they wade out into the lake. Well, she comes to in this mist-covered lake, and she notices his scratches, and he, holds up her hand, and she sees hers, and then, like, they were drawn to it, they press their bleeding palms together, and they kiss. This is the first kiss for both of them. Kellen, after they kiss, he hears a a sentence in Irish, but he doesn't speak Irish. And he's like, I heard this whispered to me, but he's thinking, yeah, I could be crazy. Who knows? But remember that because that does come back into play soon. Then we flip to chapter 7. And chapter 7 is 8 years later. When I saw 8 years, I was shooketh. I was like, okay, we're not going every year. And something happened. There's a reason why she's not, yeah. This is not good. Like 8 years, Kellen's going to freak out. He's not going to know what happened. She has no way to reach him. All that went through my mind when I saw the 8 years. I'm like, what happened? Well, this is what happened. Also, for those keeping track, Darby's now 20 and Kellen is now 22. So they're still babies in my mind, but this is where they're at for the rest of the book. She is back in town for her grandfather's funeral. Papa is gone, and he left her his cottage, and she shows up and she is engaged to a guy named John, who's kind of a dick. He's wearing a very expensive suit, and during the funeral, he's all like hiding his phone and doing emails. I mean, he honestly, sounds like he sucks. So we find out that the reason she's not been back is because her mother died less than a year after her last visit to Ireland. And she had to go move in with her father. Remember her deadbeat father? The one-hit wonder musician guy who couldn't even get visitation because he likes drugs and alcohol. And yeah, that's who she went to go live with. So we start to get a feel that, oh, poor Darby's not had the best 8 years. Well, at the funeral, there is now a new priest. And he is very kind. And he says, okay, we talked about this. Give me your mommy's ashes because she's been carrying them around for 8 years. And we'll bury them here. And she's come home. And she has a panic attack after it's done because she's almost carried her mother's ashes like a comfort blanket during all these hard times the last 8 years. And now it's buried. And she's like, okay, everyone I've loved is now officially gone. Her grandfather, her mother, and Kellen. Because she's read about, I think 5 years prior, she read about the house of Father Henry burning down, and they never found the remains of Kellen. And that's the last she's heard. And she tried to look him up, and he's just vanished. Like he's gone. She's assumed he's also died. And here it's just, okay, they're all gone. They're all gone. So she has kind of a panic attack, freaks out, and runs into the woods. And she's heading towards the cottage. And she comes to a cottage, and it's actually built. It has a thatched roof, and she, in her mind, goes, oh my God, okay, Kellen was able to fix this up. So she runs into the cottage because it starts to rain, of course, and people are looking for her, and she hears them hollering for her. And so she runs into this cottage, and there's an old woman, and it is not the same cottage, and she immediately remembers, oh my God, I'm on the other side of the lock, and my grandfather told me about the witch that lived on the other side of the lock. This must be her. Oh my God. That is what her initial thought is. And then her adult brain comes in and she's like, okay, witches aren't real. This is just a little old lady who's lived out here and I need to be kind. And I think maybe she should have listened to her grandfather because this lady was a bit off. She starts telling her she knows who she is, and that the lady in the lake is none too happy with her. Darby's like, what? And so she tells her this story. The old lady tells Darby this story. I'm going to read it to you. Are you ready? 1,000 years ago, Sorsha was drowned in the lake by her jealous husband. Again, another asshole man. A tradition began that women of the village would bring their suitors to the lake so Sorsha could judge if they were good or bad, so she can bless their union or not. That evolved to villagers beginning to get married there. The couple would prick their fingers with blackberry thorn and spill their blood into the water to prove their devotion to the lady in the lake. Doesn't any of that sound vaguely familiar? Just vaguely? Legend is that if Sorsha approved, she would tether their souls to one another for all eternity. The proof, according to this old lady, is the 3 freckles that Darby has on her ring finger. She has 3 perfect little freckles in a line across her ring finger like a freckle ring. So she's got this little freckle ring, and the lady tells her this is a sign that Sorsha has blessed your union with Kellen. So how dare you show up with another man's ring on your finger? You're already married at 12. I'm just throw that out there. Well, all this kind of freaks out Darby, so she runs off, and she's heading in the right direction now. And she eventually sees, she's running along the edge of the lake, and she sees the rope, and she's like, okay, I know where I'm at. And so she takes off, and she gets to the cottage. It's like full-blown storming at this point. Well, now we're flipping to Kellen's point of view. Kellen is now an enforcer for the United Irish Brotherhood. This is where the Irish mafia part of the book comes in. He's an enforcer for the Brotherhood. And he is supposed to be on a job, but he heard that Darby's father passed away. And he's like, I'm going to take a detour and see if I can lay eyes on her again, because he hasn't been back to this town since the fire. And he goes, okay, well, I'm hoping I could see her. We'll see if I see her. And then, then I'll go back on my job, and maybe it'll give me some closure, and I can quit dreaming about this little girl I met when I was a kid. Well, he gets there, he gets to the funeral, and he sees her run off, and he's like, I know where she's going. And so he immediately goes to the ruin of a cottage that they used to hang out at. And he gets to the cottage, and he's getting frustrated waiting, and then he hears her, and he looks up and he sees her, and she doesn't see him yet, but she pushes hair out of her face, and he sees that humongous engagement ring, and he's like, brokenhearted, fuck this, and he walks off. But he leaves his jacket, and that's important. This jacket's important, because when she gets to the cottage finally, she sees the warm jacket still warm on the ground, and she picks it up because it's storming. We're about to get really dark again. While wearing this jacket, she runs to her grandfather's house, and she gets in to get out of the storm because it's now hailing. And all she could think about is the old lady saying, Sorsha's none too pleased with you. And that's what she keeps thinking about. And she gets into her grandfather's house, and then a few minutes later, John shows up. And he is very drunk, and he is very angry, because how dare you run off and embarrass me? And you didn't show up at the pub to celebrate your own grandfather, and you're just a bitch. And I mean, he is terrible. In his drunken state, he sees that she's wearing another man's jacket and goes, well, I guess you just ran off to go fucking X or some old flame here. Not to stop and think about the last time she was in town, she was 12, John. So he goes and he starts smacking her around. And then, this is okay. Proceed with caution. He starts trying to sexually assault her. And he's into it. He's like, I love when you fight. And she's like freaking out. And he's trying to rape her. And it's horrible. And she's about ready to, she's like, okay, I can't get him off. I'm just going to give in, play dead. Maybe he'll leave me alone. She's like closing her eyes and just waiting for the inevitable. And the inevitable doesn't come. Well, it doesn't come because Kellen didn't run off. He couldn't run off. He had to look at her one last time. And he saw this happen. So he pulls John off. And when she looks up, she sees like she sees Kellen strangling John. And she doesn't, she's like, I should tell him to stop. But she thinks about what he was attempting to do. And she just was like, okay, do it. And she watches Kellen strangle her fiance. And then she starts freaking out and was like, oh my God, we're about to get into so much trouble. You're gonna get in trouble. I don't know what to do about this. He says, okay, I have to finish this job. Well, he doesn't tell her that, but he has to finish that job that he was sent on. He's like, just come with me and then we'll figure it out. In his mind, he's like, this will be my last job. I'll run away with Darby. I'll get my Darby. So he takes her. Well, of course, because all the action starts happening in this book, the job goes sideways because his own brotherhood sells him out to a Russian gang to avoid a war. The Russian gang wants him because he killed one of their top officers. He did it because he was ordered to do it, but he makes the point of, you know what happens to the messenger, and he's not wrong. So they want to kill him, and his gang is like, okay, well, to avoid the war, I guess we'll pass him over. And enter a scene that screamed to me Boondock Saints. That's what it was. In my head, as a fan of Boondock Saints, this is what I pictured the whole time, man. We've got this Russian guy, and then you have the Irish gang, and he's like, there's a big shootout, and he runs off, and Darby helps him get away by being the getaway driver. They start going and hiding and running off, and he's got this plan that we're going to go move to New York. I'm getting out of here. We're going to run off and we're going to move to New York. So now they're just kind of in hiding, running. And that's a good bulk of the book is them running and being in hiding. We find out two major plot points during their running. One, Kellen was also abused in other ways by Father Henry. He was sexually abused by Father Henry. They don't go into specifics, but it's made very clear he cannot be touched below the waist without having a panic attack. He has never had sex. He has trouble even kissing a woman because it's so intimate. So he's still a virgin. And two, we find out that Darby was repeatedly sexually abused by her father's friends. Her father would get high, get drunk, pass out, and his friends would just help themselves, would sneak into her room and force her. And she was 13 the first time it happened. And she describes all of that as the way she endured it was that she would just play dead, leave her body, let it happen, not fight, because they liked it when she fought. They liked holding her down, and she got to where she could not be restrained. That was the worst part of it for her. So she just kind of gave up and played dead and let it happen. They begin navigating in their relationship. They confess that they've loved each other since they were kids. They've confessed that the importance they've had to each other. Like when she was enduring all that, she said she thought of him, and it kept her going. She tells him about what the lady said, and it turns out he has an identical freckle ring with the three freckles across it. He has the exact identical freckle pattern on his ring finger as well. So they're taking this as facts now. And he's like, I remember when we kissed in the lake, I heard an Irish sentence whispered to me. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm crazy because I don't even know Irish. But I looked it up years later, and it translates to, your love is true, you have my blessing. They're like, oh my God. So Saoirse's real. The lady in the lake is real, and she blessed our union, and we've basically been married since we were 12, or since 12 and 14. So they are like joined now, like they're considering themselves married. They love each other. they start navigating physical intimacy and trying to navigate that with their different issues. And they've had some serious stumbles with it. And um, she finds out about him not being able to be touched and him being a virgin while she's not one. She's never had sex. She doesn't even know what she likes sexually because she's really only had it in a non-pleasurable way, either forced or transactional. It has not been anything that's brought her a lot of pleasure, but they start navigating together. Like he can't hold her hands down at all, and she can't touch him in certain ways. Like they do eventually have sex, and she has to be on top every time or he can't deal with it. And it's just really sad, really heartbreaking, and really hard, not just to read, but to imagine going through. Well, they're trying to find a way out of Ireland into New York with both the United Brotherhood or the United Irish Brotherhood and the Bratva, both the Russian and Irish armies coming after them. They even have a run-in where he tries to sell the guns that he had that he was going to drop. That was his last job. It was a gun drop. He even tries to sell those to someone from an English gang, and he ends up trying to turn him over to the Bratva. So it's like, oh, great. So they're got it coming out on all sides. He ends up having a bit of a panic attack, and he runs off to go kind of get a break, beat someone up, do something because he's scared he's going to hurt her during his panic attack. So she decides, I'm going after him. I'm going to go find him. He can't shut me out. I've got to, I'm here to help him. So she goes off to find him, and she ends up being captured by a crooked cop who is working for the United Irish Brotherhood. So he takes her to the UIB headquarters, and they send a text to Kellen, and they're like, "We got your girl." So he goes, and he realizes he can't get her from them. So he sacrifices himself to save her. At first, it kind of pissed me off because I was like, "What a breaking character!" Like he's suddenly stupid. He knows that she's not wearing a mask or anything. Like they had her eyes uncovered. Like they're gonna try to go kill her. They're not gonna let her escape. And he's like, well, I'll go to the Russians willingly and sacrifice myself, but you got to make sure she gets to the American embassy. You got to make sure she gets, somewhere safe. And they're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that. They will not do that. And it just proves his emotional state when it comes to her. He does not see clearly when it comes to Darby. He's like, okay, he is so successful in the mafia because he shuts off his emotion. He has none. He shuts it off. Everything's on autopilot, which happens when you've been so physically and emotionally abused. You do shut your emotions off. You're able to compartmentalize like that. And he does that, but not with her. He never could, not with her. So he let his emotions get the better of him, and all he was thinking about was she needs to be safe. So he took that chance. And, of course, realizes it after she's already gone, like, I've got to try to get out of here. They're going to hurt her. Well, Darby has a character flip now. And she realizes that this guy is not bringing her to the American embassy or the police headquarters. And he's bumping coke, and he's talking about how he can't wait to get a piece of her. Like he's very clearly making it obvious that he is going to bring her somewhere, assault her, and then kill her. Like he's not even hiding it. And so she has this moment of clarity. I have to save myself. I can't lay here and just do nothing and play dead mouse, which is what she would say before it. When she was assaulted as a child, she would play dead mouse. And a cat is bored with a mouse that's dead. They want the fight. So that was her rationale, and she would just play dead. She's like, I can't. I have to at least try. So she ends up attacking this guy from the back seat with the seatbelt and strangling him like a boss lady. So now they both killed people. Like he's killed multiple people, but this is her first kill. And she's done it to protect herself. And she hatches and then enacts this crazy plan, taking one of the bodies that Kellen killed. Because this is all in the course of like 3 days. It's not much time. But she ends up saging it like John, forgot his name already. That's how irrelevant he is. But like he was killed by the Russian or Irish mafia. And so she ends up going to the cops and being like, this is what happened. And here at this, because she found out because that guy was just talking, because he's like, I'm about to kill you. So let me tell you what's going on with your boyfriend. So she knew that they were bringing him to an airport at this such and such time, and both someone from the Russian mafia and the UIB will be there. And so she tells the cops, hey, if you want to catch these people, this is where they're going to be at, all these people, and this is what happened. And they attacked me and my fiance, and we got in this car accident. That's why it looks so awful. I mean, like, she sets this whole plan up and it works. So she ends up saving Kellen because her and the cops show up at the airport just in time. They end up getting married officially and living in her grandfather's cottage. And they sell all those sheep. They keep the one black sheep, which is adorable. And they live happily ever after in that cottage, navigating their own personal traumas. And I really hope they also got therapy, though maybe they can't since they're both murderers at this point. I don't know who's to say, but you know, it's still nice. So he ends up having a life he never thought he could have with her. She is his salvation. He becomes a carpenter because remember, he used to make the furniture for the little cottage that they had. So he ends up making these custom, very intricate, beautiful, custom Celtic knotwork signs. And she's writing creepy children's books based on the lore in her town and with her story, like the Lady of the Lake and the little fairy boy that lived in the woods, stuff like that. So they're doing really well. And then on their first official wedding anniversary, she finds his mother and reunites them. She wasn't in a relationship. She was being abused by Father Henry and got pregnant and tried to take care of the baby on her own while being ostracized, having no money. She was an addict. And so she just ended up bringing him to Father Henry's like, you did this, you take care of him. And she thought he would do better. I don't know why, but she had a hope. She had a hope he would treat his own son better, and he didn't. He treated him worse. She apologizes to Kellen, and they start slowly rebuilding a relationship. And that's where it ends. It ends with them happily ever after and having a somewhat normal life. And so it ends really in a sweet place, but wow, what a dark and scary journey. And just the emotional turmoil this book spoke about and inflicted. All right, let's move on to some quotes. Oh, this is little 8-year-old Darby said this, and the innocence of it paired with the reality, just, I'm telling you, this book, I don't cry. I don't cry very often at all, especially at books and movies and things like that. I'm able to compartmentalize pretty well, but this book really tried its damnedest to make me cry. Okay, here's what she said. He didn't have a single freckle. That made me sad. Grandpa had told me that everywhere you had a freckle is where an angel kissed you. I must have been kissed 1,000,000 times, but this boy hadn't been kissed even once. What was sad about this is he hadn't been kissed even once. Even at this point, he's only 10 years old. Not just because he didn't have any freckles, but he was so mistreated. He had no one being kind to him but her. And it makes it even more poignant that the telltale sign of Sorcia's approval of their union was Freckles, because Darby's the only one that was kind to him. She's the only one he's ever had sex with. She's the only one he's ever kissed without incident. So, just throwing that out there. All right. This is Kellen, and it just shows his extreme devotion to Darby. I was no longer human or demon or even fucking breathing. I was simply hers, mind, body, and cursed black soul. And that was right after he lost his virginity to her. This is Darby's thoughts after she sees him again, and he's grown up 22-year-old, and he's apparently so beautiful. This is her inner thoughts. She doesn't actually speak these words. If the devil had been God's most beautiful angel, then Kellen wasn't just his son. He was the prince of darkness himself. Ooh, ooh, that means he's sexy. Because they do say multiple times that the devil was once God's most beautiful angel. Okay, this is a long quote, but I had to include it because it was very, very poignant. It was when she has her character flip and she decides, you know what? No, I'm standing up for myself. I am no longer playing dead. This is what her inner dialogue is. This is what's said. She's talking about the knowing. Like, she knows this man is gonna assault her and kill her. She knows. And before, when she knew that was gonna happen, she would try to make it as uninteresting to them as possible. She played it. But this time is when she's like, this is what she said. The knowing didn't tell me that everything would be all right. It wasn't there to comfort me. It didn't hold my hand or stroke my hair. It lifted my chin, squared my shoulders, and said no. Not with words, but with energy. A buzzing blue hum that stopped hard, like a period at the end of a sentence. No. It was a decree, a demand, a line drawn in the sand. No. I would not let another man touch me without my permission. No, I would not abandon my body and let it be attacked. No, I was not powerless, helpless, or weak. In fact, I was the most dangerous force on earth. I was somebody with nothing to lose. Whew. Calm down, girl. I'm like the power, empowerment. Stand up for yourself. That is right. No, you don't let them touch you unless you want it to happen. It was just like, oh my God, yes. Thank you, Darby. Stand up for yourself. You save yourself. And once she saved herself, she was able to also save him. And I feel like that's not just true physically, as in this is what actually happened in the book, but also emotionally. So wrap that up in a bow. That was beautiful. I'm giving this book 4.5 stars. It was hard to read, but damn, it was good. And it hit me in the feels. And it was one of those books that actually made me want to cry. So I have to give it 4.5 stars. The spice level is really hard to rate here because never did we have just spice for the sake of it. It wasn't closed door. It was very open. It did describe it. But a lot of it was them figuring out what they could do and what they couldn't do. And there was spice and there was enjoyment and it was sexy, but it was also like you could not get hot to it, I guess, because then you feel like an asshole. I mean, they're over here navigating personal traumas of intimacy, and you can't be like, ooh, that was sexy. So I didn't get the it's sexy vibe at all. But it still was, there were a lot of feelings and emotions attached to it. And I was cheering for him. I was like, fuck, do it. Like, yay, y'all both get a good sexual experience. But yeah, it kind of, whew. So I don't know what to rate. I'm going to go 2 stars, 2 flames. I'm going to go 2 flames. We got some graphic happenings, but nothing too crazy. And it all had a lot of emotions entangled up in it. Okay. Casting, I landed Darby. and this is not someone I thought, but considering she's only 20 during the good bulk of this book, I went with someone we actually know what she would look like as an 8-year-old. I'm going with Sadie Sink. That's right. Our beautiful little freckled redhead from Stranger Things. Now, we know what she looks like as a little girl, and we know how absolutely drop dead gorgeous she is now in her 20s. I feel like we would get a nice progression there, and yeah, I think she would nail it. Like, she is Darby, stepped off the page. For Kellen, though, I went with a bit of a selfish pick. I'm not going to lie. I really did. I went with a selfish pick. I went with someone I have a personal, crush on. And it is Hero Finds Tiffin from the After series. He is younger, which is perfect because Kellen's only 22. They describe him as more lean instead of buff, but he is dangerous. And if you've watched After, I was obsessed with Hero Finds Tiffin. I think the man is beautiful and just poetic looking. Neither one of them look like real people. Seriously, they're both entirely too gorgeous, but he could be that darkness to her light. I feel like in After, that's exactly the character he played. He played the darker, emotionally tormented man to the more innocent, sweet girl, and he nailed it there. And I think the feel of that story and this story is similar. So I feel like he would nail it. Should a movie be made of this? I honestly, I don't know. I would watch it, but it would be a hard watch. It would be a hard watch. It would not be a typical romance. It would be one of those, I know I'm going to be emotionally devastated, like sitting in the movies with my heart getting stabbed. So no, I just don't know if a movie should be made. But hell, there'd be a lot of action because there were gunfights and violence and all kinds of craziness that happened in this book. So it would at least be a very interesting movie if they did. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me. That's it for today. And we have one more book in our Lust of the Irish series. So hopefully I'll see you back next week. And until then, stay spicy.
And that's it for this episode of Book Tease. Book and theme reveals and episode commentary can be found at TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Book Tease Pod. Theme music is by The Scraps, and until next time, stay spicy.